Hello everyone, welcome to this introduction to backend development with JavaScript. Without any further details, we get started with the tutorial. What you want to do here is you want to come to Node.js.org and install this sort of platform called Node.js. What Node.js is basically, just to give you a brief idea, is a runtime environment for JavaScript. Now what that means is traditionally you would run JavaScript in the browser. That was the only place where you would run JavaScript to make some sort of fancy user interaction things. But with the introduction of Node.js some years ago, you were also allowed to run Node.js on the backend, kind of like the other traditional languages like Java or C# and so on. Anyways, you don't need to get bored with all those history lessons. We can get started here. Basically, what you have to do is you come to this website, nodejs.org, and then download Node.js. And once you download it and once you install it, I'm not going to go through it. It's just very simple installation steps. Then you have Node.js set up on your computer. And I also, just a minor thing, I recommend you to download the LTS version. This is the more stable version. LTS is short for long-term support. But anyways, once you do that, you're good to go. And once you do that, what we want to do here is we want to come to the terminal. Now I am going to come to another window. There we go. Now we have a good focus. Now let me just zoom in a bit. I forgot how to do that with the keyboard. But anyways, now that we are here, you can go to any terminal window, any location on your computer, and what you want to do is you type Node. And when you hit enter, we are in the Node console. Now this is not part of the development of a Node.js application. This is just to show you what it means that you have a JavaScript runtime environment. Now when we are here, we can run JavaScript. So we can write things like console.log hello world. And it just logs hello world for us. We can give it two variables, a equals 2 and then b equals 3. And if I type a plus b, I get the sum of the two values. Likewise, I can do other sort of arithmetic operations. And then I also get errors. For example, if I write b equals 4 now, suddenly I get this error because this is a constant and you cannot assign anything to it. But anyways, this is JavaScript. This is kind of like coming to this browser console and trying to type in some JavaScript, except that now this is outside a browser environment. That's the whole point of Node.js, because it doesn't rely on a browser, we can use it to make a server. Anyways, if that's too complicated for you, if you're a beginner to programming in general, don't worry. You'll get used to these. But anyways, I'm gonna get out of this one by hitting Ctrl+D twice. And I'm gonna also clear my terminal window. And the next thing we want to do is we want to start a server code project. And that's basically like any other project. If you follow the other videos, to make a React application, to make HTML, we need to create a folder and then we go inside there and start coding. And to do that, I'm just gonna use this command to make a directory. We call it Node.js. You can just use your the file explorer to do the same, and then we're gonna cd into it. Once we are here, I'm also gonna clear again, and then we write code and hit the dot, and then we hit enter, and this is going to open Visual Studio Code in this folder. Right, so now we are in Visual Studio Code. I just paused the video to put this folder here, which sets up the dev environment with the right font size and so on. You don't need to worry about it, so just ignore this file. But basically now we have an empty code project. Now, I can come here and create a new file and call it main.js or whatever you want to call it. And then if I put some stuff here, I say hello.word. Hello, sorry, console.log, not hello.word. Hello, this is main.js speaking. And if I hit save, and I can now come to the terminal, we're just using the Visual Studio terminal functionality, and then I can just write node and then the name of the file, main.js, and boom, it's going to run the file. I can again do the same, const a equals 2, const b equals 3, and then console.log a plus b. And if I run it again, I get the result. But of course, this is just one file, and when we're working on big projects, we want to sort of make things a bit more orderly. And to do that, we will introduce a concept called a package. We won't introduce it, we'll make use of it, but basically the idea is that you package your Node.js application, because once you start coding soon, you will have multiple files here and you want all of it to be in a good shape, kind of well packaged. And for that reason, we just use a concept called a package. It's a very basic and commonly used concept. And the idea is that you want to basically, define your project as a package. And to do that, I'm gonna, so again, clear my terminal. And what you want to do is write npm. Let me zoom in a bit here, not here, maybe in the terminal, or maybe it's fine. Npm init to initiate. And if I just run this, it's also fine. It's going to ask me a few questions. Let's just go through it. For example, it just says what you want your package name to be, and Node.js, and then what's the version, etc. We don't want to bother with that, so I'm just gonna hit Control C and come out, and I'm just gonna write npm init and then -y just to say I want to go with the default options. Now when I hit enter, it's going to create a file called package.json, and this is basically all that it takes to define your project as a package and to say to the outside world and whoever gets the code of your project that this is a package. Notice that the way our main script is main.js, I think this is the default. I don't think it read the name here. But basically this is how a package.json looks like. You have the name of your package. You can call it whatever you want. We can call it my or our awesome Node.js app. You can give a description to it. I can write, but it is not really awesome. And then you have some scripts here, which I'm gonna talk about in a bit. And you have the license. It's more in terms of how you want to license your application and so on. We don't need to worry about it for now. And you can put your name as the author and so on and so forth. Now, when I'm also going to remove this one because it's going to distract us a bit. When we come to the scripts, this is where how you define the entry point, so to speak, to your application, i.e. how you want a user of your application, a new developer who just downloaded the code to run the app, also for yourself not to have to run the scripts every time. How does it work? I can define a script called start, for example, and I'm going to call it node main.js. Now, what this is going to do is whenever I come to the terminal and write npm run start, it's going to call the script. If I change this name to banana, and if I run npm run banana, it's going to do the same because it doesn't care what we call it as long as we just use the same name here in the console. It's going to start the application like that. Usually you would write a script for your production environment, for a test environment, for just testing different. If it's just a developer running and you want to have some auto refresh, auto reload of the app, it's called hot reload, I think, some places. You would use it, but you don't need to worry about it. Again, this is a beginner's hands-on course tutorial, so we don't need to worry about that. Anyways, now we know how to create a Node.js application. This is basically what it takes. And from here, when you reach this stage, which is basically putting a package.json, what you do is that you just go on and install the packages that you need. And that's what we are going to do now. So let's go back to the browser and let's come here. This is Express.js. It's a very kind of classic package that you would use to create a server with Node.js. There's different packages. There's some newer ones, and some of them might be even faster or more lightweight, but it's a very good one. I think it's a very good one to learn if you're just learning Node.js. That's why I'm just gonna go with this one. I think it's also quite widely used, so probably on the job market you'll be quite in a good position if you know this one and you apply to a job that's a backend Node.js kind of job. Anyways, like many other packages. Oh, by the way, there's a website called npm. I think it's called not this one, npm.js, where you would have a list of all the packages with Node.js. For example, one that I kind of like to use is called day.js, where you get, it helps you with dates and date and time, working with date and time and so on. You can just basically come here and use all these packages that I think a lot of them, the majority of them are free. I'm not sure about this, but there's a lot of free packages, and this is developers who have put the effort to create these packages that you can use. So if you have some extra free time, come here and just browse through these packages. This is the power of developing with JavaScript and Node.js, that you have this large community that provides you with all these free packages. But back to our tutorial. With Express.js, you have this, usually when you go to any packages website, they tell you how to get started. And of course, we can do the same. We also have a hint of it here, but when we go to the getting started page, installing, we come to basically telling us what we kind of did here. Make a directory, go there, run npm init. But then here, when you come here, is the installation scripts of installation command of the package, and almost always the script would be something like this. You would write npm install and then the name of the package, Express. And when I hit enter, it's going to go fetch the package. And once it's done, notice the way it created this dependencies sort of object here, and inside it gave Express and the version that we are currently using. I think this sort of sign here, power sign, is going to, it means it's going to use the most approximate version based on the major version, but you don't need to worry about it for now. Anyways, this is just the package that we have now. And from now on, any developer that gets this code, they are going to get this Express package as part of it, so they don't need to worry about going and installing all the dependencies manually. A minor step that you would want to do here, notice now we also have this node modules folder, and this is where all the code of the dependencies are installed. It's very important to make sure that you don't commit this one. If you're working on a repository, we're not in a repository right now, but what you want to do is you want to ignore this one. So you would just create a new file and git ignore basically, and then you would put the name on it. If you don't know what this is, don't worry. If you have experience with Git, this is what you need to do, but we're not in the Git repository for now, so no worries. If you don't know what Git is, just ignore this for now, but keep that in mind that you should not share this one. You should not commit it to a repository, not because there's any security risk. I don't think there's, I'm not sure. This is not security advice, but the idea is that this is a large one and you will automatically get all the content when you run npm install, when you get this fresh code. But anyways, now that we have Express.js installed, we are ready to use it. And to get an idea how to use it, we're going to get back to the home page, and this is what you would do a lot of cases. You can see here it tells us after you install, there's a next step. There's the Hello World app, so we can come here and then it gives us a nice and beautiful code example that we can use. And why not just copy this thing and come back here to our main and then paste it. Right, so let's go back. Let's run npm run start again, and let's see what happens. Boom. Let's see, now we have this example app listening on port 3000. What does this mean? It means if I go back to my browser, I open a new tab, write localhost 3000, I get the app serving me. I can come back here and instead of hello world, say hello whatever. And I stop this one and go back. And if I come back and refresh, notice I get the text that I'm being served. What's happening here? The first line, we are referring to Express.js. That's how you do it. You could also write, I think you could also write import Express from Express. This should also work. And then you come here. There's just two different versions of using this module thing, and nothing to worry about much. Then you have the app that you sort of instantiate here. You just say, yeah, I want to create a new instance of this one. Then you set the port of it. Port 3000 is usually conventional for Node.js, but again, it's something that you decide. And then here is where sort of the main body of the server logic starts, where you say app.get at slash. That means the root, basically here. So when the user hits this path, you want the user to get this hello whatever response. Now, if I change this to say hello, and I also restart my server, oh, we got an issue. Oh yeah, it's because the syntax is not sort of. Well, the thing is, you need to set this. If you use this one, you need to come to your package JSON and then set this thing called I think type the module. Yeah, let's do it like this. So if I do it again, there we go. It's because this is it's a module way of looking at code. So it just wants you to set this one before you can use this import statement. But just do it and don't worry, it's not important for now. Now when I come back here, if I refresh, I'm not gonna get anything because we have not defined any path for the root, right? For the slash. Instead, we have a path for the hello. So when I come to the hello, I get this one. And that's basically how routing works on a server. You define a route, and then once you define it, users can go and use it. Now, usually in modern application development, web application development, you would not send a plain response like this. You would not send a plain text. Instead, you will use JSON, and that's I think it's short for JavaScript object notation. Let's just take a look what JSON is. It's basically yeah, it's like this. You have well, this is not a very good example actually. Let's go to Wikipedia. Right, so this is basically how a JSON object looks like. It's just a set of key value pairs, and if you don't know what a key value pair is, it's just things like, yeah, first name, last name. This could be an employee, a student, anything, any type of information. In modern coding, a lot of places you would use this kind of notation. You would have an object, and then you would have inside it, you would have another object or an array if there's multiple things. For example, this person has, in this example, has multiple phone numbers, one for their home, one for their office. So you would use an array. You could have a number, yeah, like the age. You could have true or false. It's very limited, the data types that you have. I think it's only 5 or 6, a string or a boolean or a number or an array and an object. But in general, you get the idea. This is how you communicate code between machines, quote unquote, i.e. between your front end and the back end. So it's quite customary and conventional to use JSON to communicate from a server. And to do that, we need to do two things. First, we need to tell our app that we want to use JSON, and that's just by writing app.use express JSON. This may look a bit random, but that's just how Express is set up. I mean, it's just basically a few lines. But then once you do that, we are allowed to come here and replace this one with JSON. And then inside it, I'm just gonna make an object called message hello world. This is a JSON object. And I can write whatever here. I can write banana, true, whatever. random number 5, test number, some number, and then I stop the server, I start it again, and I come back to our application. When I hit refresh, we get this JSON application. Let me see what happens when I click here. There we go. Yeah, we get this JSON, not application, sorry, we get this JSON response. And notice that all of these are the things that we set. So yeah, you have this JSON response, and this is basically how a lot of the this sort of data communication works across the internet. If you come to any website, like a weather website or something, you take a look at the network tab in the browser, you will see that they're most likely giving a JSON responses and so on. So yeah, it's important to be able to return a JSON object from your Express app, and that's basically how to do it. It's not complicated at all. Right. The next thing we want to do in HTTP, you have different kind of requests. You have a GET request, just to give you briefly, and that's the idea where you sort of only use the URL. There's also a type of request called a POST request, where you can send a payload, so to speak, to the server. It's basically saying that I want to submit, for example, a form, and then the data that's on the form, you want it to be sent you want it to be sent along the request. And to do that, we are going to sort of define another type of request that would be app.post, and then I can just call it whatever. Let's just call it submit for now. We can call it anything. Now, before getting into the details of how to define a post request, I want to show you guys one more thing, and that's this application called Postman. It's a very good app that you can use on your computer to test different APIs. It's a lot easier than using the browser, so I recommend you download this one. Of course, you can use any other app that does the same. There's also probably some extensions in the browser that do the same, but you can just come here and download this one. I have it installed already, so I'm just gonna come here, and yeah, this is basically how it looks like. This is the when you start, it's gonna ask you if you want to log in. I just picked the lightweight API client. I think it's fine for the level of work that we are going to do for now. But notice that if I come here and write basically the address of the of our server, just copy it and then come here and paste, and if I click send, it's going to do the same that we just did. It's going to it's going to basically call this this endpoint and then give us this response. I'm going to see, I can zoom in here maybe a bit. There we go. But yeah, that's the idea. It's just a tool that helps you test the server. Right. Now, back to our post endpoint. Let's say we have this called submit. To make things a bit more fun, I'm going to change this and call it echo. So we're going to echo whatever the user sends us. And to do that, we have to take the contents of the request body and then just send it back to the user. That's basically as easy as writing response.json and then request.body. I think this is how it should work. It's been a while since I worked with Express. So yeah, let's see how this works. So I'm going to restart the server, and we're going to come back here. Create a new request. Oh, we're not allowed to do that. Fine. So I'm just gonna change this to echo, change the method to post, and then what we have to do is we have to come to the body tag and then say that we want a raw body of type JSON, and then we can just write test whatever one, and now it's complaining because I need to use double quotes. But basically, this would be an example of a post request. The HTTP method is post. Notice that these are different HTTP methods. It's more of a convention to use. For example, if you want to delete something from a database, you would use the delete. This is up to you to decide as developer of the server, but it's also important to make sure that it aligns with the general sort of conventions and what's good practice. And usually the idea is that a post should create something, a put should update, a patch should partially update, and so on and so forth. But again, that's maybe a bit too advanced for now. All we need to care about is that now we have this test request, and when I hit send, I'm going to get what I sent back. And that's basically because what we did here is that we took the request body and then we send it back. Now if I change this to 2, I get the same. If I add another object, hello, how are you? I send this one, I get the same. And that's basically how a post request works. There's another concept in developing backend, the basics of developing a backend server, and that's the idea of status codes. There's a concept of HTTP status codes. Let me just see if I can find it. Okay, status codes, and that's the idea that you return a number, and that's usually a 3-digit number. Let me see if I can find a good one. Yeah, something like this. So if your number is in the 200 range, it means that it all went good, nothing bad happened, that the request that you requested was carried out successfully. The most common one is 200 okay, you have created, accepted. If you create a new item in a database, you usually return this one, and so on and so forth. There's some redirect ones where you want to redirect the user to another URL if, for example, the resource has been moved temporarily, and so on and so forth. And then when you come to the sort of the higher numbers in the 400s, that's where bad things happen, more or less. If it's like a 400, is usually you either didn't have a sort of the required access for 3, for example, or for a 1 unauthorized. For 400 is if you had a bad request, if you didn't give the right data. 404 not found. This is also, you probably know this one, it's when you go to a page that's not found. And then there's 500 where it's if it's something wrong happened inside the server, internal server error. This is usually the more unexpected things, and so on and so forth. Basically, the idea is that as a developer of the server, you need to make sure that you return the right code so the front-end application can use it and then deliver a nice, good user experience. Excuse me. In this example, we're not really doing anything special, so there's not a chance of something going wrong. But to give you an example, if I come here and say throw some random error, and this would be the equivalent of something going wrong on the server. So when I restart the server, I come back to Postman, and then I hit this one. Notice that we get this error message, internal server error. Yeah, that's the 500 error that we just saw here. That's the default for internal server error. Something went wrong. We don't know what it is, but we just tell the user that something went wrong. Notice that we're just seeing the error directly. Usually you should not do this. Usually you should just say you should not disclose the actual error code because it can bear some potential security risk. So to do that, also notice that this is not a JSON response, and we want to have a JSON response. And to do that, let's say we have this error where something goes wrong. What we want to do, and what we always want to do, is we want to wrap our code in a try-catch block. So I'm just going to write try. And then, also just the sort of the normal scenario. And then I'll be catching whatever error that comes. And then in this case, I'm just going to write response.status 500.json, and then then the message, and then here I'll write something like, ooh, something went wrong. Please try again later. When I hit save, notice that the way this works is, this is our main code. Let's say this was some database operations, and then you would send that response to the user. But because an error happens, the runtime is going to stop here and then jump to the catch block and then execute this code. So if I hit stop and start this again, I come back, I hit send. Now we get the sort of a neat and clean JSON response. It also doesn't disclose what happened in our database. For example, let's say this one was database error on row 200, whatever. And this would be the, this would be some data that maybe is not a good idea to disclose to the outside world. So instead, we just write a general message that, something went wrong and try again later. Also notice that usually if something goes wrong in the server, it's more of a technical message, and you don't want to just give that out to the user. You want to give them something that's nice and meaningful for them, so they know, okay, something went wrong. There's probably, they can create a support ticket or whatever on your website and contact your tech support or whatever. That's just how error handling works. Something else I want to show you guys is how to read URL parameters, and this is again something a bit different, and that's the idea that sometimes, let's say I do a Google search, for example, let's say this the same example that we have HTTP status code. Notice the way it works in the URL. You have the google.com, and then you have the search, and then a question mark, and then Q equals HTTP status codes. And this is basically a kind of a parameter I'm giving Google. I'm just saying, do the search, and then give me the result. If I change this to banana, it just gives you the search HTTP banana codes. I don't know why I'm just making lame banana examples today, but anyways, that's just how it works. And to implement that, what you want to do here is you basically come here to your endpoint. Let's say we want to get back to our hello endpoint. And what you want to do here is you write, let's say we want to make a parameter called pizza. So I'm just going to write pizza. And then what I want to write here is request. So this is the request object. It gives us access to all the requests that we can use, and just work with the request. And I'm going to write params and then .pizza. Now this is going to take the sort of the pizza variable from the parameters. And then I can just come here and write pizza, and it's going to just include it as part of the response. Notice that this is the equivalent of writing pizza colon pizza. There's a shorthand expression in JavaScript where if the both sides of the of an assignment are the same, you can just remove the right hand side and make it like this. Now what this is going to do is it's going to include this request at the end of our response. So I'm gonna hit Control C, start the server again, come back to Postman or the browser. Let's just go to the browser. And then here, if I hit refresh, what did just happen? I think pizza is not defined yet. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to write question mark pizza and then write never with pineapple. And of course it didn't work. I don't know what happened. Bum, 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 bum. All right, let me just pause the video and figure out what happened. All right, so it was the problem was that I had this was supposed to be query, not params. Params is actually something else. I'm gonna show you in a bit. But basically, that's just how it works. So just to recap, you write sort of request req, the request object, and then the query, and then the name of your query parameter. And then we're going to come back here. And if I just call this endpoint, notice that it just works. It puts this value into the pizza, it's just into the pizza property. I can change this to actually, maybe sometimes pineapple is not too bad. And then notice that it just does the same. It doesn't care what we put in. It's just going to take it and put it here. And that's because, that's just what I told it to do. Now, the other thing that we just did and it just didn't work, that's the URL parameter. That's an API way of doing parameters, and that's a bit of a newer way of doing things. It's a bit neater, so you don't need to write this sort of question mark and the parameter and so on. And it's also, it's just a different kind of addressing a sort of getting hold of an API endpoint, and that's the idea of a root parameter. It's called a root parameter. What you want to do here is you write app.get. Let's say I want to find a specific user. Well, we don't have any users for now, so this would be just an example. So users, and then what I will be doing here is I write a colon and then user name. And then I'm just gonna write the same. So request and the results, and then I can just write a JSON and then the username. And then I will just write request.params.username. Notice the way it gave us an autocorrect. Sorry. So what we just did here is that we defined a root parameter where it says users and then the name of the user. And once you come here, it's going to have the name of the user accessible through this request params username. Let's change this a bit and make it a bit more intuitive. So I'm just going to write a message, hello, and then my dear darling. Let's hit save, stop the server, start it again, and notice that if I come here and write just users, it's going to come here because we don't have anything defined here. There's only a path if you give it an actual username. So if I write John, I just get this message. I'm now hitting this endpoint and it's just taking the username and then putting it into this heartwarming message. So hello John, my dear darling. I can change this to whatever, pizza with pineapple. I'm not sure if it works with the space. There we go. Hello, pizza with pineapple, my dear darling. So notice the way it works. It comes to the user's path that we define here, and then takes the whatever word that you put here as the value, and then puts it in this one. And this was basically the basics of creating a server with Express.js. You define a sort of a route. You write app.get or app.post or delete or whatever HTTP method you want to do, and then inside it you would do some operation, maybe connect to the database and so on, and then return a response, and then you would want to have an error handling. It's always recommended, and then you catch it and then give the user a meaningful error message. A small thing and a last thing in this chapter I want to show you guys is a package called NodeMon, and it's a package that sort of allows us not to have to stop the server and restart again. It does that automatically for us in the background, so we can just keep coding, and then when we come to the browser, we can just refresh the browser. Now to do that, we just come to the page. This is what you would often do. Come to the npm page for this for the package, and the way it's telling us to install it is either to install it globally or to install it only for this project, which is what we are going to do. So we're just going to type this one, but I'm not gonna copy paste it. I'm gonna just type it so I tell you guys what exactly is going on. So let's come back to the package JSON and then stop the server, clear the console, and then what you want to do is write npm install And here is where you need to pay a bit of extra attention. 2 dashes, save dash dev, and then node1. Why do we have this? Save dev, and that's because we want to install this package only for when we are developing. The user of our app is not going to need this app, but it's only for the developer, because what this package does is it just aids the developer. It doesn't do anything in the final product. So we don't want to include it in the bundle size of the final app. So yeah, it would be just taking extra space there. So yeah, we hit this command and then we hit enter. And once we have it, notice that it created another object here, dev dependencies, and inside this one we have nodemon. And then when we come back here, I think you should be able to just write nodemon and then the name of the app. So if I come here and then I make a dev command, and if I write nodemon main.js, let's see if this is going to work. Notice that the script is called dev, so it should be npm run dev. And then when I hit enter, it's going to start this app. Notice that way it's saying that it's watching all the paths, all the files that are JS or any of these. And that's the idea that basically what nodemon does. Now I can come back here and I can change this. Hello username, my absolutely awful friend that I never want to see. And if I come back here to the browser, if I hit refresh, notice that it just worked. I didn't have to stop the server. Yeah, it just works. And likewise for all these others, if I make a change, it's going to be affected immediately. So yeah, that's the idea of this nodemon package. It's just gonna help you with your developer workflow, so that you won't have to stop the server and start it again every time you make a change. In the next part of this tutorial, we are going to take a look at MongoDB. Now, MongoDB is a database. It's just a database. What's special about it is called document-based database. Well, it's not really special anymore, but if you compare it to the traditional SQL based databases, we'll call them relational databases, what it does is that it allows you to store objects kind of like this. So these like JSON objects, more or less something like this on a database, which is very handy because when we work with Node.js and JavaScript, we work with these kind of objects a lot. And then with MongoDB is just a very easy way to store them and store them in a database. And that's what we are going to do in this part of the tutorial. It's very common, again, when you use JavaScript to use MongoDB. There are other databases as well, but I think this one is a good one for you to learn if you want to land a good job and so on. That's just my opinion. But anyways, now you can install MongoDB locally on your computer, but I decided to show you how to do it on a cloud database. I think it's easier because then you don't need to worry about all the setting up on your local computer and so on. And to do that, what you want to do is you want to come to this MongoDB Atlas website. It's their cloud-based service, and then you either sign up or use your Google account to sign up. And once you sign up and then go through the few steps, you will land on this page where it's going to ask you what kind of database that you want. Notice that there's 3 options. 2 of them are paid. These are the more pro options. And then you have this M0, which is for learning and exploring MongoDB in a cloud environment. It's pretty limited. The storage is it's only 512 megabytes, but that's fine. That's all we need to know for now. Notice that it's also gonna automatically do some security backup for you and so on and so forth. Now, you can just leave the options as they are, choose the region that's closest to you, and then we are going to create a deployment. And once you come here, you're able to create a database user for yourself. We can just give it some test name for now because we're just doing this for the tutorial. So I'm just gonna write tutorial. And then the password can be test 1 2 3 4. It's a very weak password. Don't use this kind of password. But yeah, tutorial and test 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can hit create database user. Now it created it, and then I can come here and say choose connection method, and we want to choose a driver, and then we want it to be for Node.js. And then notice the way it's going to guide us through the sort of the examples and the code that we need to run here. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just gonna take the entire code and just copy it into my code base. So what we need to do is, as it's telling us, there's another node module that we need to install, and that's the MongoDB node module. So let's come back here. Let's stop the server. Notice that even though we're using NodeMon, every time we install something, we need to stop the server. So clear, npm install MongoDB. We can just copy, paste it, and then hit enter. And it's going to install the MongoDB package. And it's going to add it to our dependencies list. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to copy this code. Let me just make a new file here called db.js and paste it here. And once we have this one, let's just do a quick test. So I'm gonna clear. And of course, one more step, we need to define our password here. Again, this is not a good security practice, but for now, I'm just gonna add it to the code directly. It was test 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I run nodedb.js, right, of course, it's not going to work. Let me see what I can do. You know what, let's just come to this main file, or let's just come here and then say that we want the DB to run for now. So you're right, I don't think that was a problem, sorry. I think what it's complaining about is that we have the const instead of the import. So I need to change this this way of importing to write import these two from MongoDB. Let's see if this would solve it. Yes, it does. Yeah, so notice that we got this message. It connected to MongoDB correctly. So that we're set and we're ready to go. Just to give you a quick sort of idea of what's going on, it's setting a URI. This is basically an identifier, an address, the address of the database that we have on the server. We have our user defined here. If you come back to the MongoDB website, we have the if I just sort of close this one and go to the database access, you will see my user here. And that's just it has admin privileges. That's the way I can connect with it. I can connect to it, and then I have the client object. It's just creating a MongoDB client, and then it's calling this run function where you connect to the database. And now it's just doing a ping, where it's something you do on the network, where you just try to make sure see if your database is up and running or not. Okay, now that we have access to our database, what we want to do is to work with our data. Now, so far, we haven't created any database. MongoDB created some test sample data for us, but we're not going to use it. If I come back to our database panel, dashboard, this database dashboard, you can see I can come here to the database tab here, or maybe, I can come here, and then there's a button here that says Browse Collections. Notice that I only have this cluster 0 on the free tier. I think you only get one of these. And then here we have this sample database that MongoDB Atlas created for us. We don't need to use it for now, so I can just remove this one. And then it wants me to copy and paste, just enter the same name. And then it's going to remove. Of course, you don't need to do this. We just did this to, just clean up our database. Now, the next thing we want to do, we want to actually use the code to insert some data in our database and make a real application that, like many other applications out there on the web, uses the database. Now for that, I'm going to clean up this code a bit. I'm going to create a new function and I'm going to export it from the database file so I can use it in the main file. I'm going to call this export async function get my collection. You can of course call this anything that you want. And inside here, the first thing we want to do is we want to create a connection. So I'm just gonna write database.connect, like this. And then we want to connect to a specific database. Now notice that this is connecting to the entire cluster. The cluster is a set of databases. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm just gonna use the same syntax as here. Await client.db, and then this would be called, let's call it lame recipes. We're gonna insert some lame recipes here. I don't think it needs the await here. And then once I have that, I can store, I can access the, sorry, you know what, let's call this just the tutorial. This is going to be a database for all our collections. And the next thing I want to do here is I want to create a collection of the lame recipes. So collection would be db.collection lame recipes. And because we have not created this one yet, it's going to create both of these. Actually, it's going to create a database called tutorial, and inside it's going to create one collection called lame recipes. It's basically a table in traditional databases. And then once you have this one, you want to return the collection, so it will be used by the parent component. Now, if I come back to my main function, I'm going to also save this one. And also let's just remove all these. We won't need them anymore. So if I come back here, I can make use of this function that I created. And for that, I'm going to also remove these roots that I created. So let's just remove this one. Let's make one, a general one that's going to return all the recipes. So I'm going to call this recipes, request response goes to, and then here we are ready to get hold of our collection. So I'm just going to write collection and then get my collection. Notice that the autocorrect, the IntelliSense helps me do this. I have this get my collection here. It's being imported from the database file. There's a minor thing. I just need to put the .js here. Otherwise, it doesn't work for some reason. And then here we need to make this async, and that's because we need to await here. So await get my collection. And the next thing I want to do is I want to get hold of all the recipes, which we have none at the moment, but we're going to add in a few seconds or a bit later. But yeah, we're going to add them in a bit. I'm going to write collection dot find, and this is where you would normally define some filter, like say I want to get all the names that are in a certain way, or filter on number, but we're going to leave it empty because we don't want to find anything specific. And then to array, and I think this one is also an await, yes. And then I'm going to say response JSON and recipes, and this is going to send the recipes back to the client. Let's see if I come back here. If I go to recipes, I'm going to get this empty array, and that's because because we just have our recipes array. I'm just gonna pause the video to see why exactly we are not getting the oh, sorry. No, never mind. I just need to put it like this. So it'll be an object. And there we go. This is what we want. We have the recipes, and then it's an empty array. Let's go back to the database. If I refresh here. Oh, well, it didn't add our data yet, but that's no worries. We are going to add the data in a second. Now, what I want to do is I want to define a route where I can use that route to insert items into my database. To do that, we are going to use the post method, and then I can just make this recipes because there are different HTTP methods. They can be on the same route. And then again, async request response to, and I can just copy this one. And then let's say I want the recipe that I want to be added. I'm just gonna write it on a separate line for simplicity. And this would be basically request.body. So the body of the request would be the item that I would add to the database directly. And the next line, I'm going to write await collection.insert one, and then the recipe. And then I can just write status, I think 201, that was the created response, right? We don't need to do this, by the way. Yeah, 201 is created. Now I can also add a message, created successfully. This is not necessary, it's just to make it neater and nicer. Right, and now we have this endpoint where if the user sends a recipe JSON object here, it'll be added to our database. Let's go back and let's see. I have Postman here, so I'm gonna write recipes, right, plural. And then here I'm going to let's just make a random recipe. So the name would be sushi with ketchup. Lameness level, let's say it's 8 out of 10. Really lame, true. These are just random stuff I'm putting in, of course. And if I hit send here, it's gonna say created successfully. And now if I go back to the browser, and then I just refresh here, there we go. We see our recipe here added to the table, to the collection. Now I can go back to Postman, and then I can add something else. For example, spaghetti with no spaghetti, but just some random cheese. Okay, this is a bit less lame, so I'm going to make it 6. It's important that you get this right because this is less lame than a sushi with ketchup. So yeah, very important. And then really lame, well, still true. So let's send, and it's going to create it successfully. And then let's see if we go back here, hit refresh. Now notice that we get 2 items here. One is the one that we just created, and the other one that I just, the first one and the second one. And if I go back to my dashboard, I click refresh. There we go. Now we get our data, and this is the way you can also browse and kind of like go to the behind the scenes, look at your database, see what's going on there. We see both of our database items. I can even insert a document directly from here, but we don't need that because we're developing a code that does that. But if I insert it, if I go back here, I'll see the results. Now there's a couple things for you to know. For example, here, instead of the insert one, I could use insert many. And that's the way you can give it an array. So instead of insert one, it will be insert many, and then it will expect an array of items. It will just, that's just a way to insert multiple documents as a bunch, which is easier because it's not like for every one of these, it has to send a request to the database, but you can just insert all of them together, so it will all go faster. All right, so next thing we want to do, let's say that we want to find recipes that are lame, but not too lame. So if I go back to Postman, let's say I will, we have this lameness level. I want to find the recipes that have a lameness level that's greater than 7. So if I go back to the table here, you can see this one is 8. That's really, really lame, but this one is 6. So I want to filter and only get the recipes that have the lameness level that's above 7. To give another example here, we can come up with a recipe that's kind of like half lame. Let's say we want rice with orange, I don't know, whatever. And then lameness level here is like 3. It's not that lame and really lame. I don't need to change. We're not going to work with it, but let's say I will just set this to false. There we go. So now we have 3 items. One of them is really high level of lameness, sushi with a ketchup, but these other 2 are not that lame. And I want to make an API to help my users not to have a mental breakdown. I'll make them an endpoint that only returns the items that are not that lame. So let's say, let's come here actually. So I'm gonna write app.get. It doesn't matter, by the way, the order. It's just so we put all the gets next to each other. And then I'm gonna call this not that lame. And then I'm just gonna do the same basically. So async request response. And then I'm gonna also just copy paste this line so I'll have access to my collection. And here it comes the kind of interesting part. I'm gonna write recipes, and it's kind of similar to here, await collection dot find, and then inside this find is where we are going to define the query that it will give us the recipes that are not that lame. How does that work? I just open the curly braces, and I'm gonna refer to the lameness level property, and then I'm just gonna put a $, and I'm gonna say I want the items that are less than 7. And then we need to just return the response. But basically, that's the idea. Await the collection, lameness level is less than 7, and then it's going to return that to us in the response. So not that lame, 3. Let's just make it 1 so we don't struggle. Yeah, let's go back to our browser. I'm gonna create a new tab here, and I'm gonna write not that lame. There we go. Notice that now we got only the items that are less than or equal to 7 on the lameness scale. Yeah, and that was it. That was just easy. If I change this to greater than, let's say I add another endpoint that's called too lame, then I just make this one to be greater than 7. So only the recipes that are really too lame. So I change this. I hit my endpoints, and I get the recipes that are really lame. It's like an 8 out of 10 scale. Yeah, that's just how it works. So we have this one, the LT. I think you can also put an E, so it'd be less than or equal. Now it's just less than, greater than, and you have a whole bunch of these formatting parameters that you can look at. But for now, yeah, we can just sort of just learn this one. There's also other things. For example, you can say I want the recipes that have a specific name. Then it will also show you. So instead of this one, you will write name. And if I put, let's just give an example. If I put sushi with ketchup, I go back here to my previous endpoint. And of course, it didn't work. Of course, because I didn't remove this one. Right, so now we're just gonna find everything that has a name that's sushi with ketchup, and it's going to return to us this one. Yeah, it's just as easy as that. So just a quick recap, we have a filter which defines the name of the property that I want to filter on. There's also, you can put multiple items as well, just put a comma and put the other ones. And then in this case, we have a special filter that's not looking for a specific value, but a number that's less than or equal to this number that we defined here. And the last thing I want to show you guys is how to delete an item. And for that, we are going to use the HTTP delete method. And the rest is kind of similar. I'm going to write recipes. And then here, I want to specify an ID. That's going to be the ID of the element, namely this one that we're going to delete. For now, we're just going to use this auto-generated ID. In the future, maybe you will define your own ID, or you will delete based on other sort of parameters. But for now, let's just do it like this. And then I'm going to say that I want to delete when the ID is equal to this one. So to do that, we are going to, we don't really need to store the results. But let's say we can just do that. So I'm going to write results. This is just going to be some results saying X items were deleted. And then I can just put this one here, await. And then I'm going to write collection.delete1. And inside here, I'm going to write ID. And then remember from before, request params ID. There we go. This should do the job. And then, that's it. And then I'm going to write result dot status 200 the JSON of results. So it's going to send the results JSON to the user, to the front-end application. Now, so if we hit this endpoint at this ID, it's going to delete the item with that ID. So let's say I want to go back to all the recipes and I want to delete the sushi with ketchup because it's super lame and we don't want it here. So I'm going to copy this ID. I'm going to come to Postman, make this a delete request, come to recipes. Notice that if I just, we don't even need the body here, so I'm just going to remove it. If I just hit send here, it's not going to do anything because we don't have a delete endpoint for just recipes. We have delete for recipes that's followed by an ID. So slash and then the ID here, and hit send. And it's going to delete, and then we got this acknowledgement from MongoDB Atlas. And if I just go back to my recipes, it did not actually. Oh, sorry, I need to. All right. So the problem was that I had to wrap the ID in this new object ID. But basically, what you do is you import this object ID from this bson package, and then you just change it to this. So ID would be new object ID, and then the ID that we want to use. And that's because the type of the IDs that are used in MongoDB are just this object ID type. If you define your own ID, you wouldn't have to do this. Then it would just, it would be a basic, it would be like a basic string or a basic integer and so on. So let's see what happens here. Now we have this this delete function, and then I'm going to take our sushi with ketchup, its ID, copy it, come to Postman, go back to our delete sort of call. So delete recipes and the ID that we want to remove, and then I can hit send. And it's going to delete. And notice that this time we have delete count equal to 1. That means it deleted one item. So if I go back to the browser, I hit refresh. By the way, you can also do this in Postman as well. I think we can just create a new tab and then say that we want all the recipes. It's just going to give us the same as in the browser. But notice that, the sushi with ketchup is not here anymore because we deleted it. I can also delete this one, rice with orange as well. Just this one, and then hit send. And then come back here. I just send this again, and now it got deleted as well. And that was it for our little backend development with Node.js and Express.js and MongoDB Atlas tutorial. You learned the basics of how to set up a server and connect to a cloud database. For now, I think you should just go and practice with this. There's this the website, the official MongoDB documentation. You can come here and then you can choose that you want to learn about Node.js. And then once you're here, you can find some very nice examples of how to use it with find operations. There's different ways to insert a document that we just went through, basically just a basic one. There's also different insert multiple, then there's updates. We didn't go through this one because it would be a bit more complicated, but you can also just do it. It could be a good practice for you to just get a bit more familiar with how to work with MongoDB and from Node.js. But yeah, that's basically it. I recommend you go and try to practice these, and just get yourself more familiar, play around with it, and try to get a solid understanding of how to make a server with Node.js, Express, and MongoDB. And see you next time.